smaller crew than what we had earlier, but anyway, appreciate y'all coming out and giving us a few minutes of your time today. Last time we took about 2 hours and had about 30 minutes for questions after the training. Just to give you guys an idea of who we are, I'm Lonnie Anders, Patrol Sergeant with the town of Wytheville Police Department. I've been employed with the town since 2006. With me today is Officer Lackey and Officer Brewster. Both of them started their careers in 2010 as certified law enforcement agency or officers. They came from various agencies. The latest transition, they both came from Wythe County Sheriff's Office to our agency. All three of us are certified alert instructors, and we'll talk a little bit more about what alert is here in just a few minutes. Today's training, just to give you guys kind of an overview of where we are with this and what's going on. We have been approached by the town manager about getting some active shooter training for you guys. There's going to be a couple different parts of this. As what we're doing today is basically what you need to do in the event of an active shooter. The second part of this, we are developing active shooter response plan for each town entity, each building and so forth, and all that will come together at a later date. We hope to have that done by the first of the year, but that's going to be involved with sitting down with each department head and doing a specific plan for each building and each entity, so that way it's specific and tailored to each place of business. Just a few housekeeping things. Restrooms, if you're not familiar, I assume everyone's familiar with the facility. The restrooms are going to be out and to your left. They're near the front doors. We will give you a break about halfway through. We're going to try to limit that to do what you need to do and get back in. Usually a 5-10 minute break to try to get as much training in as we can. And of course, I'm sure everybody has a cell phone on. If you will, just make sure those are on silent. Understand that some of you may need to go out and take a phone call and so forth. If you need to, that's fine. Just please try not to disturb if we don't have to. Of course, emergency exits. There's going to be one on each side of the room, and there's one behind us and hiding in the blinds in case of emergency. Please make your way to the most convenient exit. The second part, there is an AED and trauma kit located next to the front receptionist desk. In the event we do need that, you know where it is. Do we have any medically trained personnel with us?
Like how much? How much training? We have CPR and AED and that.
But no nurses, no formal medical training.
Yeah.
Okay. And then who has a cell phone with them? Mike, you guys have invented an emergency. You might call 911 for me.
No problem.
All right. We are 911, so we'll be dealing with whatever it is you call and give information. All right. Of course, the reason we're here is the civilian response to active shooter events. Again, this was developed by Alert. The Alert program was developed by Texas State University. We, as individual officers, have had the opportunity to attend this training. Alert was formed in 2002 after the events that unfolded on 9/11/2001. Also, after all the events such as Columbine, which was a total game changer for law enforcement and our response to those active shooter events. The Alert program has now become the national standard across the board for all law enforcement training. They originated, like I said, Texas State University in partnership with Texas agencies such as San Marcos Police Department, Dallas SWAT, those larger size agencies. This information was put together. They studied events, they studied all the active shooter events up to that point, and composed, said, okay, these are weaknesses, this is what we need to do to change. And again, this Columbine video that we're getting ready to watch, from what the tactics that was deployed on that day to today are 180 degrees. We totally changed directions with what we do as law enforcement. So the second part of that, they say, okay, we know that we've trained our law enforcement officers to do what they need to do. We've met that standard, we've met that burden. Now we're changing gears to teach you guys what we can do to minimize and help you survive in these events. I think any of us could go back in our memory and think of what we watched on the news yesterday and pick out one specific active shooter event within the last few days, within the last week, that appealed to us. These are not incidents that occur monthly or yearly. These are weekly and daily events that occur in our society. So what we're going to do is we're going to teach you from where we were and bring you to where we need to go now. And this video itself, we'll talk a little more about it after the video.
Jefferson County 911. Yes, I'm a teacher calling my high school. There was a shooting here with a gun in the fire. I did one thing. Yeah, she got shot. I was calling my high school. I don't know what's in my shoulder. If it was in your left, I don't know what. Okay, is anything in your hand? Okay. I'm calling the parent, and I'm in the library. I got. It doesn't stop. I don't get it. Hands on the table. Take this training. Some of the teachers are, kind of taking control. Please, here we go. Okay, we're getting them there. Who is the student, ma'am? I'm not having a student. Okay. I don't think I want to have an idea about it. Okay. I'm not having I don't try to. What's going on out there? He said, it's probably something up there. It's probably a different. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't want to walk him outside. See what was going on. He turned the gun straight at us and shot. And my God, the window went out. And he kept standing there with me. I think he got hit. Okay. Something in my shoulder. Okay. You can help him over, ma'am. Okay. Oh, God. Stay in the line with me. Oh, God. Do we know where he's at? I'm sorry? Do we know where he's at? Okay. On the library. He's up here. He's right outside here. He's outside? Outside of the hall. Outside of the hall or outside of the hall? Okay. There are alarms and people out there. Smoke. My God, smoke is like coming into this room. Okay. I've got these things on the table here. I don't know what's happening in the rest of the building. Walk in and smoke and you go right down. I'm sure someone has been calling 911. Yeah, we've got a lot of people on. Okay. I just want you to stay in the line with me. We need to know what's going on. Okay. Okay? I am on the floor. Okay. You got a kid there? Right. And I've got everything in the library on the floor. Down the floor. Is there any way you can lock the doors? Someone's coming in from out there. Okay. The guy is right outside the library door. Okay? I don't think I'm going to go out there. Okay. You're going to call the line. I'm not going to go. Okay. Okay? I'm going to go to the door to shut down the door. Okay? I've got the kids on the floor. I got all the kids in the library. We have paramedics, we have fire, and we have police on route. Okay, sir? Okay. Okay. I can't leave my home with you. Okay. Yeah, we got police officers on scene. Okay, just try and keep the kids in the library calm. Yeah. Is there any way you can block the door so no one can get in? I do not. Okay. I can't let you guys open. Anyway, he's right outside that door. I'm not ready to go to the door. That's okay. That's what he is. I'm not ready to go there. Okay. That's okay. Okay. I told you that you don't know where I go to the other thing. All the children are on the floor of the table. Yeah, they're all under the table. Okay. And as long as we can just try and keep... No one's saying a word. Okay. As long as we can keep everyone there as calm as we can. I hear some yelling out there going on right now. Yeah, we've got alarms going off now as well. Yeah, there's one. This room is filled with smoke. Okay. Okay. Keep everyone low to the floor. Yeah. Everyone stay on the floor. Stay on the floor. Stay on the table. Okay, I don't know. I didn't. I said, what is it? It's not. It's outside. It's behind. And I'll go home with it. Oh, God. She's like, I know. I did not know who the student was. I don't even know. I thought he was wearing black. It was very large. Shooting. He was out there shooting. It looked like he was pointing out shooting. And somebody said, what is that? And the guy kept saying, totally ridiculous. That's it. You're the police. Right. And they told him, well, that's not, a quick that I looked at. I was going out there to say no. I was watching. Oh, my God, that was really close. That's really close. Okay. your name, ma'am? Patty?
This day again was the 9/11 or the 911 call from the Columbine incident. The teacher or the person that you heard on the recording was Patty Nelson. She was a teacher that day that got up, got dressed just as you and I did, and went to work. Never expected anything to happen that day. She wasn't prepared for this incident. 10 of the 12 casualties that happened at Columbine High School occurred in her classroom. What's some things that you heard from the video that you think may have played a role in that? What did she tell the students to do?
Well, what I got was that she said, get on the floor and lock the door, and,
She never did
like
lock
if
the
you
door.
lock the door, they're gonna know you're in there, but I couldn't make.
Well, give us a few minutes, maybe I'll change your mind.
Okay.
But the main thing that she told the students to do is what?
Get on the floor.
Lay on the floor.
Yeah.
And you heard her at several points to yell at the children to lay on the floor.
Yeah.
What do you imagine the children were doing during that time? They were probably trying to run or flee,
Right,
right?
or look and see what's going on.
When we're done with this training, we hope that we equip you with the tools and the mindset that you need to avoid the same mistakes that Patty Nelson made that day. I hate to second or Monday morning quarterback anyone that lost your life in an event, but if we don't take these situations, analyze them, and learn how to overcome them or do something differently, then we're not doing anyone any favor. We're just setting ourselves up for failure. But again, this incident occurred, and it totally changed law enforcement. At this point, what law enforcement was trained to do was respond to the incident, set up perimeter, don't make entry, and wait for SWAT. The killing lasted for 12 minutes before the first tactical member arrived. So until that point, like I said, as patrol officers, all we done was showed up at the front door and waited for SWAT to arrive. Now, what we're trained to do from this incident, we're trained to go direct to threat. Whether we're 1 deep or 3 deep, we don't have to go in with the team. We go in as individuals and we go direct to threat. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in just a few minutes. As I introduce this to you, the alert program, based upon the analytics and stuff that they've done and analyzing these situations, they've come up with the basic concept of avoid, deny, defend. And we're going to explain this to you in depth throughout this program. But what we have queued now is basically a video that overshadows the entire program of what we're trying to teach you and what we want you to take away from this. This is entered into a partnership between Walmart stores and the Texas State University, along with Alert. They went in and made this training video. So give it just a few minutes of your time and learn and watch what they do in this situation.
There's a gunman inside the store. We need help now.
I have about this nuisance management. What's going to be the solution by the time we
All right, thank you, appreciate it. Actually think he's got it on. Will's got a truck, I don't know if your daughter will be interested.
gunman inside the store. He's shooting the place up. We need help now.
Issues that we found. Okay, see what next. See what's happening. Just let us know.
There's a man with a gun.
There you go. Okay, you're safe for that. This guy on the street. Look, man, come on. No, look. Run. To the right, to the loading dock. Come on, this way. Oh, no, come here. Yeah, in here. The government's coming. We're gonna have to defend ourselves.
I can't do this.
You're gonna see your daughter tonight, okay? We are all going to go home tonight. All right? We have a right to defend ourselves. Get the gun! Hey! Over there! Yes, yeah, we're all good. Everybody's going home. Yeah.
If you ever have the misfortune to be in an active shooter event, you deserve to survive. In our research, we have found that the actions that potential victims take during these events are critical to their survival. We have identified 3 options that have proven effective in many events. These are: avoid the attacker, deny the attacker access to your area, defend yourself. It is a personal decision, but you have a right to do so. Avoiding the attacker starts with being aware of your surroundings at all times and knowing what is going on around you. If you see or hear something that looks suspicious, take action. For example, the stalker took immediate and effective action to protect himself when he observed the shooter pulling out weapons from the bag. Others, however, hesitated, and this hesitation can cost them valuable time that they could use to get away from the threat. If you hear something that is, or could be, gunfire, start trying to get away from it as soon as possible. Gunfire has a distinctive sound. Inside of buildings, the sound can be muffled or distorted. A single loud bang could be a person dropping something, or even thunder. But repeated loud bangs are much more likely to be gunfire. Additionally, look at the reaction of others. Are they startled or scared? Are they running? What are they saying? Any one of these events individually may create denial, but when put together, should create a heightened awareness and stimulate an immediate response. It is important that you know how to get out. The situation will be chaotic and rapidly changing. In general, you will want to go to the nearest exit. But you must also understand that the closest exit may not be accessible or safe to use. If this is the case, go to a different exit. While avoiding the threat, consider the uses of cover and concealment. Cover offers protection from gunfire, while concealment minimizes your exposure to the attacker. Try to keep objects between you and the attacker. If you can't avoid the attacker, sometimes the best option will be to deny the attacker access to your location. In many locations, this can be accomplished by closing and locking a door, such as they did in the meeting room. Locking the door has proven effective in many attacks. If the door does not have a lock, you can place heavy objects in front of it. Remember, barricades work best if the door opens toward you. If it doesn't, use things that are readily available, such as straps, belts, or objects that can be used to block or secure the door to make it difficult for the attacker to enter the room. This may at least slow the attacker down and give you time to identify alternate means of escape, such as adjoining rooms or windows. When attempting to deny access to your location, you want to make it appear that there is no one in your area. Lock doors, turn off the lights, silence your phones, and get out of sight. Your attempt to deny the attacker access to your location might fail.
The gunman's coming. We're going to have to defend ourselves.
Have a backup plan about what you will do. In many cases, this may be to defend yourself. You need to be in a place where you can act if the attacker comes into your location. In most rooms, you will line up against the same wall that the door is on, near the door so you can react, but not directly in front of it. If you are unable to avoid or deny, your best option may be to defend yourself by using whatever is available. In a situation where someone is attempting to kill you, you have the legal right to defend yourself. Attack weak spots such as eyes, throat, and groin. Fight to the best of your ability and do not quit until the attacker is stopped. This is what the workers in the warehouse did when they were unable to avoid the attacker and felt their lives were in immediate danger. Whatever option you choose, call 911 as soon as you are in a safe location. Provide any information that you know. The operator will ask you a lot of questions. If you don't know the answer, don't guess. Just say you don't know and only state the facts. This will be a complex situation, and we can't tell you what you should do in every case. What we can do is provide you with information about the options that we have found to be most effective for surviving these attacks. The ultimate choice is yours. What you do matters. Avoid the attacker. Deny access to your location. Defend yourself. Law enforcement will be entering a chaotic scene with limited information. Their first priority will be to stop the threat to your safety. The police may not know where or who the threat is. Listen and comply with their commands immediately.
Put it down, sir. Put it down. Both of you on the ground.
Police are trained to look at people's hands to assess threats. Do not have anything in your hands that could be perceived as a weapon, such as a cell phone.
Show me your hands, sir. Show me your hands. Move to us. Everybody, keep your hands up, please. Walk out the door.
If told to do so, stay where you are and do not make sudden movements. Again, follow all commands. Remember, what you do matters. Avoid the attacker. Deny access to your location. Defend yourself. Remember, ADD. You can survive.
The next part we get into is kind of the mental aspect behind it, kind of what people have been known to do in disaster situations. This right here, this three-step, I guess, mental/physical, it was researched by Amanda Ridley. She come up with it. She's done all the research on most modern day disasters, whether it be earthquakes, shootings, bombings, on and on, throughout the whole world. And everybody goes through these 3 steps. It seems like at first they denied, said this is really not happening. I didn't hear a gunshot, and it was somebody dropped something next to them. Then they, go through the process, deny, they think it's fireworks, and things like that. And so once you overcome that, you go through the deliberation, like, well, what am I going to do? Maybe it was a gunshot. And hopefully you'll move on to a decisive moment where, like, hey, there's a door, I'm getting out of here. I don't care if it was someone dropping a book. I'll let them figure it out. I'm going to stand out in a tree somewhere. That's what you go through. And what she has found out through her research is the people that go through the 3 steps the fastest are more apt to survive. They are most times the survivors of these disasters. Ones go through it slowly, denial, maybe go through minutes and minutes of working, hey, if in a situation, I don't think it's really happening. The longer you spend on that, the more apt you be in one of the statistics we'll talk about. But anyway, like I said, the first part of that is the denial. And this right here is, most of us men, we'll deny it all day, we know best. But a couple things to relate to that. One instance is the Twin Towers. You felt the building shake. You're watching people run around. Well, it was found out that some people actually started calling their friends, hey, what's going on? When their building's about to burn down, we know the outcome of this now, but the building was shaking, the plane hit the building beside them also, and their building's on fire. They're like calling their friends, hey, what's going on? Did y'all feel that too? And like, well, I think a plane just hit our building. So what they do, start logging off all their computers, start picking up their pocketbooks, cell phone chargers, where's my cell phone, getting all this together, then try to leave the building. By that time, that was all denial. It's just really happening, and a plane didn't really hit our building. So it took them so long in that, most of the people that did not survive went through this, according to the research we went through. They tried all these other things. So one thing too, a good foundation, the reason we do this now, this class, everybody has a good foundation of, hey, this is really, might be a thing that's happening right now, a shooting, because we see it every day. What's wrong with Wytheville? We're right in the middle of 2 interstates. I hate to say it's a prime spot in this area. You never know who's going to come through the interstates. But they're going to stop here to get gas, they're going to stop here to eat. You don't know what kind of person it's going to be. But if everybody has a good foundation of, hey, this is what we need to do, plan A, B, C, then once it happens, we'll know that we can skip some steps. Hey, this is probably happening right now, so we'll skip the denial and go into decisive movements and what we need to do. But like I said, if everybody has an idea of what to do, then it won't be such confusion during the horrible minute that happens. Like, for instance, you go to a fancy dinner. You've never been there, and you got 3 different size forks in front of you. You can look around like, hey, what are they using for their salad? You want them for this and that, we don't know. But you kind of watch what other people's doing. But if one or more of the people in the room is actually trying to block doors and do this, they're going to fall in with you. Everybody's going to be on the same page. Hey, let's get this guy, or let's bust this window out and leave. So that's kind of what we want to do, is create a good foundation.
All right, you got past the denial stage. Now you have to deliberate. You have an issue here. You're under high stress, and you're having to make a decision. And that's not easy for the human brain, because the brain does not function very well under stress. We all know this. We've all been in stressful situations at some point in time, and we realize that we could have done something a little bit different once we calm ourselves down. So, guy comes in, you hear shooting, you get past the thought that it's not fireworks, it's not somebody slamming a pallet down or a stack of books, it's actually a man with a gun. And this is finally hit you. This is a potentially life-threatening situation. So now comes in what you're going to do. What we're going to talk about is your stress and what stress does to your body. Your body responds differently. Everybody has a different level of tolerance to stress because everybody trains a little bit different. I'm sure we probably have a different level that we can handle as opposed to maybe one of you guys. So basically everybody's in the white at this point. We're at 60 beats per minute. This is your resting, normal, average, healthy person beats per minute heart rate. Everything's good, calm, something stressful happens. You bump up into the yellow. You're at 90 beats per minute. Maybe it's just, maybe you hear fireworks. Maybe you hear a pallet slam. Something ensues you to get a little excited about something. Your heartbeat goes up. You're at 90 beats per minute. This is where your fine motor skills starts to deteriorate. Okay? Maybe you need to call 911, but you have trouble hitting the buttons. Maybe you can't think, what's the number again? Okay? I know there's some people have trouble, and they've said they've had trouble thinking of the number for 911 because of stress that they've come into. You get past that, you go into the red. Maybe you realize that there has been a shooting, and you realize that there is gunfire, but they're not in your room. So you go into the red, you're about 120 beats per minute, okay? Has anybody ever heard of people being able to like flip cars? Like somebody being in a car and they get like enhanced strength, and a couple people can flip a car off of somebody. That's where you're at in this mode. This is the red, 120 beats per minute. This is where you bleed less, you're faster, and you're stronger. Condition gray. This is where it gets really bad. You start to get tunnel vision. You start to lose your hearing. You lose track of time. It feels like everything is going in slow motion. Somebody's walking through the door and they have a gun and they're firing, but you can't hear the noise, but you know they're shooting. You see them walking, but it feels like everything's going really slow. We've actually, I spoke about it in the earlier class. We actually have an officer that talked about a shooting that he was in. And he talked about how everything went so slow during the whole process that it lasted just a matter of a minute or so, but it seemed so slow through the whole thing. He talked about losing his hearing in it, that he was pulling the trigger of his gun, but he couldn't hear his gun going off. So he thought he didn't have bullets in his gun. So he stopped in the middle of a gunfight and checked his gun to see if he had bullets in it. So he was in condition gray. He was about 150 beats per minute. He hadn't even been in the police academy yet. He was just a young officer. This was kind of a first event. The guy that was with him, he had a seasoned officer with him. So it was a situation where this is something he hadn't trained for. He didn't understand what was going on. So if you understand and fall back to this and know what's happening in your body, we're going to talk about how to bring this down a couple levels here in just a minute. Condition black. This is where it's bad. This is, your system has completely overloaded. This is where, I hate to say it, but some people were a little, I don't know if they were offended, but just shocked, but this is where you actually lose control of your bowels and your bladder, and it's basically, everything has fallen apart at this point. You have no control over your body. You curl up and it is bad. So this is about 175 beats per minute. The reason this happens is because the human brain is pretty complex. When we're in our human brain processing mode, we're slow thinking. We are able to sit and contemplate, okay, normally we know that there's 3 exits in this room because nothing's going on, we're not under any kind of stress, we can think about it, we're calm. So we're able to realize and be able to count that there's 3 exits. But when we're under stress, we go into what's called the lizard brain. This is where we just react. Very fixed and emotional. We don't think. Most people realize that you come in that door and you have to go out that door when you're in your lizard brain. You don't think that there's also windows that you can get out if you bust a window out. So this is where your human brain turns into a lizard brain when you're under high amounts of stress and you can't think rationally. With your lizard brain, we lose the ability for the human brain to work. We go into what is called a fight, flight, or freeze mode. These are typically unfocused and they lead to the wrong actions at the wrong time. Anybody familiar with the Stations nightclub fire? Anybody remember that? Big hair band, pyrotechnics. What this is a layout of what the bar looked like on that day. The reason we're going to talk about this is we're going to talk about how the lizard brain works. So if you look, there's 4 numbers, 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's 1. This is the main entrance right there. This is designed mostly for the business. They had a stage and they brought people in. I'm sure they charged a cover charge for people to come in and watch some of the shows. So the way that's designed there is to be able to funnel people in and somebody be able to take a cover charge and get people in for business purposes. The second one is the kitchen. It's believed that there wasn't an exit sign right here identifying that there was an exit on the other side of that. So basically nobody knew except employees that there was an exit there. Number 3, right here, is the main bar area. Anybody in the bar area had access to that. There's a small entrance right here and a small entrance right here that anybody like in the main stage area would have to funnel through. But if something happened in this area like it did, your lizard brain is not going to think about that. And then the fire was here, and there's an exit on the other side. So of course, nobody could get out that side. So this video I'll show you is a reporter was in there videoing this show. And if you watch, while he's videoing, it'll pop up 1 minute or start clock. So it'll show him moving to the back. You'll see how people are using their human brain to begin with, and they say, oh, there might be a little bit of a fire, maybe I'll slowly move to the back of the room. And then all of a sudden, people realize that there is a fire and they panic, so everybody starts pushing and shoving and thinking that the only exit that they can get out, because their lizard brain has now took over, is the exit they came in. As we saw in the previous slide, that was not a good exit for several hundred people that was inside of the club. this is a study that the West Warwick Police Department did. This is the diagram that they made after this event. You see some numbers with some circles around them. Any idea what those might be?
Yes.
It's bodies. It's bodies that they found. So, right there is the main entrance. 31 people. 31 bodies right there in the main entrance. That is because once they went into the building initially, they did not use their human brain to say, okay, I walk into a room and I automatically think, where's my exits? I know it's hard for you to think I need to do that on an everyday basis, but this will potentially save your life one day. If you walk into a room and understand that something might happen. It doesn't hurt to be prepared. So they walked in, they went through the front door here. Most people went over here to enjoy the show. Fire started on the way from here to here. 31 people got stuck right here. Does anybody pay attention to when he was videoing what this was right here? It was glass. 18 people didn't think to bust a window out in that area in order to escape. They were just trying to get to the front door. So, that's things you need to think about. I mean, it doesn't hurt to bust a window out. There's a fire. Does it matter at that point whether the window's broke or not? No. Things you need to do during the deliberation stage. Calm yourself. Tell yourself, it's not that hard. I know we do it on a regular basis. I referred to earlier being in pursuits and getting on the radio feeling like I have to scream. I know I don't have to scream, but I'm excited and I feel like I need to scream. So I have to tell myself, calm down. So it's that simple. Tell yourself. Combat breathing. Take a deep breath in, hold it for 2 seconds. Exhale, hold it for 2 seconds. That could potentially bring you from a level red back down to a resting heart rate just by combat breathing. You're going to be scared. So, instead of being scared, why don't you get angry? I mean, you can shift your emotions. Somebody comes in with a gun, it's okay to be mad about it. Be mad. Okay? Protect yourself. Stay fit. Studies have shown that most people that are physically fit are better at handling stress. So, do some walking. Scripted practice. We do this as law enforcement officers. I ride around at night and think about if this place gets robbed, which way am I coming in from there? If a shooter happens here and I'm here, which way am I coming? It's okay to think about if you have your family and you walk into the mall, and you come in the main entrance, and you know that there's a shooter at the main entrance at some point, you know you don't have to go out that entrance. So script and practice. Think about it. If there's somebody here doing something, which way am I going to go? So it's okay to script and practice.
I'm going to butcher this name, but Rick Rescorla was a U.S. Army veteran. He was highly ranked at the time of his retirement from the U.S. Army. After his tour of duty, he then went to college, got his Bachelor's of Science, and then he went to work for the company Morgan Stanley. Has anyone ever heard of Morgan Stanley? Large corporate office. Their offices was located in the World Trade Centers in the Twin Towers. His primary duty with Morgan Stanley was develop safety plans and develop one thing that he done in particular for the Morgan Stanley group was create evacuation plans, not only for their group, but for the Twin Towers itself. On 9/11, he died in the Twin Towers. He successfully made it out, but went back in to help others evacuate. He is credited with saving thousands of lives because of not only the plans that he developed and implemented for for the Twin Towers, but also because of his bravery and actions on 9/11. This monument is currently at the 9/11 memorial, and like I said, he is credited with saving thousands that day. The second individual I want to talk to you about, we have a short clip that we're going to show you, but everyone probably remembers Sully, the pilot that landed the plane in the Hudson, correct? I want you to listen from the Columbine video to here, and I want you to hear the difference between how he reacted to this situation. He makes a decision, he's calm, he's oriented, and he follows through with that decision.
Cactus 1539 in Bird Sioux, Falls, West of Falls, returning back towards Hawaii.
Okay, you need to return a low right. Turn left heading up 220.
220.
Stop your departure, got emergency returning. It's 1529. He, third strike, he lost all engine, he lost the thrust in the engine to turning immediately.
Cactus 1529, which engines?
He lost thrust in both engines, he said.
Got it.
Cactus 1529, could you get it, see if you want to try to lane 1013?
491, we made the devices.
On Cactus 1529, could be left traffic to runway 31.
Unable.
Okay, what do you need to land? Cactus 15.9, runway 4 is available if you want me to left traffic to runway 4.
Idiot, runway, what's number 2 on right? It is in New Jersey, maybe Teterboro.
Okay, you're off your right side is Teterboro Airport. Do you want to try to go to Teterboro?
Yes.
Teterboro, Empire, actually we're going to Park Sky Emergency inbound. Cactus 15.9, turn right 280, you can land runway 1 in Teterboro.
We can't do it.
Okay, which runway would you like at Teterboro?
We're going to be that one.
I'm sorry, say again, Cactus? Cactus 15.9, radar contact is lost. You also got Newark Airport up at 2 o'clock in about 7 miles. Eagle Flight 4718, turn left thing 210.
4718. I think he said he's going in the Hudson.
All right. So in this scenario, who is in the denial stage? Traffic control. Captain Sully knows exactly what he's got to do. He's weighed worth the circumstance. This is what I'm presented with. He had that decisive moment. He said, okay, this is my situation. This is what I have to do. And the outcome of that is everyone survived an airplane crash. How many times do we know that an airplane goes down outside of an airport that has any survivors? Very few, right? As part of his training as a pilot, part of his training was to land a plane in water. Did he think he would ever have to do it? No. Just like you're sitting here today thinking, I'll probably never be presented with the situation. But he reverted back to his training. He reverted back to what he knew. He reverted back to that human brain. And he programmed himself, in this situation, this is what I need to do. And this is the concept that we're trying to sell you here today, is to teach you that through these stages, once you make a decision, stick with it, follow through with it. And not to say that at any moment that it has to change based on circumstances that you encounter, but just like he did, he made a decision, he followed through with it, he saved lives. It may not only be your life that decisive moment happens. When you make that decision, you may not only be saving your life, because in a chaotic situation, what do we usually reflect back to, as she was talking about earlier, is what we see, right? So if I see everybody going out that door, and one person says, hey, the light bulb come on.
You're probably afraid to do something else, because everybody's doing one thing. It's like, well, I might be making you probably second guess yourself.
But there's always, I can guarantee you, if we set up a scenario, and let's say an active shooter come through that door right now, somebody would have enough insight, there's one in here, I promise you, that would react differently and have a better train of thought than the others. Because we all handle stress differently. We all anticipate what may happen, and some of us train ourselves to see our way through it. So if we, like I said, take the information we're giving you today and build upon it, we're giving you a baseline entry level in 2.5-hour course. We're not here to make you experts. But there's several things out there. If you Google, just a simple Google search will give you a lot of information that you can take with you and build upon.
Move right on into what an active shooter event really is. When you see those words on the screen there, does somebody have a definition for me of what an active shooter event? Maybe some details that would describe that. What's your definition?
Gunfire.
Somebody with a gun trying to take life.
Essentially, I mean, it's not a hard answer. It's attempted mass murder.
At the time, somebody shooting, I think it is.
Yeah, the thing is, active shooter events, it really doesn't mean that someone is getting shot. Doesn't mean they have to die. This is just an active shooter going for a confined space full of people. And that's the definition of it. The data that we're going to show here, it's compiled from the years 2000 to 2014. So just a little background, it takes the FBI, they do all the reports and statistics. It takes them a couple years to compile it all and use it for whatever they're trying to get out of it. So 2014 is as far as we can go right now with correct statistics. So some modern day things that we've seen as far as active shooters and stuff, it's not going to be on here. But what a shooter, what your definition would be, you can't nail it down. It's all over the board. There's no set profile, there's no set race, there's no set male and female. It goes through the whole variety of everything. Most all of them, the only things that we can really say that, hey, that most active shooters have this in common is they're dead set on doing what they're doing. This is the end of probably their life. They know it's going to end that way, whether they take it themselves or have the police do it or someone concealed carrying it. They know this is the end. They're very deliberate in what they do, and they're doing it for a cause. Whether we've seen some stuff for as far as ISIS, that's their cause, and most of the time what we're going to talk about is the cause usually is they're mad at their boss or they're mad at a coworker. That's where most of your shootings happen. This right here, I'm going to populate it. As you can see, the small dots are from 0 to 4 people killed in an active shooter event. And as you can see, it progresses. Medium-sized 5 and 9, and the large ones are 10 plus people have died. Like I said, this does not count 2015 till now, which is a whole lot more. Because unfortunately, it's becoming too common. But as you can see, it populates, and you'll see where tech does fall in here, and all over the U.S. Most of them you do not hear about. And we are kind of sensitized to that now, or desensitized, and as we see, it's every day.
Look how the pace picks up as the years progress too.
If we could run that to 2017, it would be probably double that now. You know, just have to guess.
Does it surprise you guys that there's so many right here close by?
Not really.
I mean, this is a nice, quiet little area, people think, but, I mean, you can't even really see where we're at because of dots.
And look at the areas that a lot of these are. Look at California, for instance. Why do you think that there are so many shootings in that area?
Population.
And exposure. Do what?
Too many stressors.
That too. But California has some of the strictest gun laws in the nation. The resistance is not there. Here in Southwest Virginia, there's a lot of gun-toting people, correct?
Yeah.
If you go into a mass shooting or into a shooting event, you're most likely going to encounter some type of resistance. You look at overall, where does a lot of the shootings occur? The mass shootings.
No guns. It's usually where there's
They usually choose like a school,
Yeah.
churches,
Where
that's
they're-
the big thing right now. A lot of those places, why is that?
Guns allowed.
Gun-free zones.
Yeah.
There's no resistance. They're cowards.
And
They
they
don't
know
want to meet that resistance. So, just keep that in mind when you're in these areas that you are more prone.
I would really like to see that updated because it looks like the colder states. But then you get down to Texas, which is not a cold state, so I don't know, there's not a lot there.
Well, crime, there is statistics show that crime, the hotter it is, the more people's out doing things, robbing houses. I mean, if you're a bad guy, I'm not gonna be out when it's negative 20 degrees trying to rob
Yeah.
somebody's house.
They don't want to be uncomfortable.
So the warmer it is, that's a totally different day for that, but
Yeah.
it does relate to.
It seemed like, it looks like some kind of pattern.
Oh, yeah. Like I said earlier, location of the attacks, most of the commerce at your workplace, and things like that. If you combine that with the education, which is your schools and stuff, good day, you're pretty much, you've narrowed it down where it's gonna happen. It's either at work or at school. And most time, both in places, you're not allowed to have guns. They know that.
And where does commerce, where do you think that fits in as far as we're concerned as the town, as town employees?
I don't understand.
Where do we fit in that chart as far as the one back?
Commerce.
We're in commerce.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
You
yeah, sure.
have a 50+% chance of being involved in an active shooter. And that's what we're trying to bring you guys, your awareness up, and this is the reason we're here. Because a lot of these shootings that occur in those small settings don't make national news. And why is that? Because we're desensitized to it now. Unless it's the new high number or something like that, it don't get national news. So that's another reason, the news and the media play a big role in what prods these people to do what they do as well.
I want to ask something while you all are here, just out of curiosity. And this is just your own opinion about this. Does it matter? Is there any kind of correlation between the news or the movies that they talk about or the shows on TV where people see this kind of stuff and it looks glamorous and they go out and copy it? Is there anything to that? I hear it that it is.
Lieutenant Dave Grossman, he's been an awesome speaker. Again, a military veteran. He's actually came here to Wytheville and done a seminar. He mainly speaks to law enforcement and that type of setting. He does a lot of school type training. Based upon his study, he attributes a lot of it to social, like games, because they desensitize us, because it becomes a game in the mindset of our young personnel and our young youth, adolescents and so forth. That ingrains them, it desensitizes them to it. And you get extra points for shooting a cop or for committing rape, in these games. So as our society progresses technologically, we as individuals, our standards, our morals, they all get lowered. And I think, yes, that plays a big role in it.
If you read books, there's a good book that he actually wrote, Lieutenant Grossman, Stop Teaching Our Kids to Kill, and that's what is based on the...
Is that the name of the book?
Yes. On how video games and TVs and things like that has desensitized our youth to the point to where it doesn't affect them to go in and do these mass shootings.
We'll quit interrupting you now.
Sorry.
If we can, just to not scold anybody, but if we can, hold those questions to the end, and we've got time allotted for those.
All right, this right here, this will flip-flop either way. It's just pretty much showing you that it doesn't matter if you know these people or not. They may be an employee, they may not. Looks like it's falling about the halfway point. Now, I'm sure with today's stats, it may skew either way. So that's just kind of representation. You may or may not know the person. It's not set one way, more apt to be the other. That's all I'll show. This instance right here, I'm sure you remember, 2009, Wytheville, Texas. The gunman, he killed 13 people and injured 30 more. The two police officers arrived on the scene and took them out. They had been through the exact same training that we went to which is the alert training. And I think when you have that training, you can bring your heartbeat down a little bit because you've done it. We train with sim round guns, and they are pretty much, it's the same effect as being shot, so if you're not bleeding out. I mean, maybe you will bleed out sometimes.
Basically, what the sim guns is, if you're not familiar with them, sims rounds shoot a soaked bullet. They're a true firearm that you could put a live round in and fire, but they shoot basically, it's kind of like a rubber bullet, but it's a soaked bullet. And they stimulate us that if we're hit, we know we're hit. And especially when you're instructors and you have to play the bad guy, it's not always fun. But anyway, that type of training, force-on-force training as it's called in the law enforcement community, it really changes the game as far as making it live instead of pointing used to the standard was we point a blue pistol on you and go bang, bang, you're dead. And then they fall over. Now you're actually having to put bullets on target, and if you're hit, then then you have to go down and you have to provide medical aid to yourself. And that's where alert really changed the game as far as law enforcement and the training that's offered out there.
So pretty much, like I said, the officers there, they've been through the same training that we've been through, and they took out this guy. Another one, Chattanooga, Tennessee. This is only 2 years ago. This is probably 4 hours away, pretty close to home. And you see, he got an AK, and he shot through the whole recruiter's office there. I don't think anyone actually died in that office, but right after he shot the office up, he led the police on a pursuit, went to the nearby Navy Operational Support Center just outside of Chattanooga, where he murdered 4 Marines and 1 Navy officer before he was shot and killed by his police officers. And he had just a variety of guns, AK-47, 12 gauge, 9mm. This year in Oklahoma, in 1986, disgruntled employee situation. He got rode up that morning. I think it was about 7 a.m. First thing work, got rode up. Wasn't happy about it. He left, come back with 2 45 caliber pistols, 1 22 long rifle pistol. He started with the main boss that rode him up, killed him, killed the guy that's second in command. Ended up killing 14 people, wounded 6. Killed himself. You just never know when that's going to happen. That guy could have been having a horrible day, and that write-up just started off. That created that. So you just never know what's going to happen.
You've all heard the term going postal. That's where that term came from. That shooting. Real quickly, why don't we take a quick break? Be back at about 20 after, and we'll get started. Everybody's ready, we'll get started. As you've seen earlier, you've seen the map of where these shootings are happening. And like I said, Alert's basic concept is to analyze past events, look at those and learn from them. There's 2 factors that they have found that directly contribute to the number of deaths that happen during these incidents. And if we can control those factors, then we believe that we can reduce the casualty rates in these events. The first one is how quickly police arrive. We do things within departments, policies, procedures, and so forth that we set up in order. Some of those are certain officers work in certain zones within vicinities of schools and certain localities. Different agencies have different tactics to combat this. The second factor to that is going to be target availability, and that's what we're bringing to you guys today. If we can limit the amount of targets that an individual can encounter during an event, then we can limit how many people are shot or killed during these events as well. The simple concept is that we've gave you is to avoid the attacker. We're going to look at a few incidents such as Virginia Tech and learn from their tactics. You can see when we begin this, the casualty rate in the first room that is attacked versus the last. and the different outcomes because of that. The national average response time to one of these incidents is 3 minutes. Keep in mind that in communities such as ourselves, our average response to about any call is about 2 minutes. From the time the 911 call arrives, it is dispatched to us, and we arrive is approximately 2 minutes, a little bit less. Now, let's say in Wytheville County, if the officers, the deputies have to leave the sheriff's office and respond to Fort Chisholm, obviously that response time is going to be skewed. But the national average is 3 minutes. But what do you think can happen in 3 minutes? How many rounds, how many bullets can be fired in 3 minutes? A lot, right? Has any of you ever been in a grade school fight or seen a fight between individuals? How long does the fight usually happen between, let's say, 15-year-old kids?
About a minute.
30 seconds is where I'm at. Those boys have been doing some backward stuff in training. But usually within the first 30 minutes of an event, such as a fight, the individuals that are engaging each other are spent, they're tired. And a lot of blows, a lot of physical harm can be accrued in that 30 seconds of time. So with 3 minutes, a lot can happen. And once you're involved in those type of incidents, however, how many of you have ever been involved in a chaotic, very stressful situation? Have you ever been in one of those situations where it felt like 3 seconds felt like 2 minutes? Have we all been in that time delayed type stressful situation? Well, you can only imagine how 3 minutes, how long 3 minutes would be. It's like us as officers, our agency recently purchased tasers. With that, in order to carry it, we had to be tased with it. That, once you're tased, that burst of energy lasts for 5 seconds. There are certain individuals that got mad because they thought that they had been shot twice, because it feels like that 5 seconds takes forever because of that time delay. So in that 3 minutes, like I said, a lot can happen, but what you do during that 3 minutes, when we're getting there, can very likely change the outcome of whether you survive these events or not. Civilian response, again, we're not teaching you our tactics. We're not teaching you how to stop the threat. We're not teaching you to be law enforcement officers. We are teaching you how to, number one, avoid these type of situations. If you can avoid the situation, then you've already won the battle. And like I said earlier, if you avoid the attacker and you're able to lead others out and enable them to avoid the attack, you also have allowed them to survive this incident. One incident that comes to my mind, and the reason we don't train you to try to take out the attacker unless it's very imminent, is because of a simple situation. Have any of you remember the shooting at CC's Pizza where 2 officers were gunned down while they were eating lunch? And then the 2 attackers went across the street into a Walmart, went in, and the shooting unfolded there. Do y'all remember that? If you Google or YouTube that incident, what you're going to find is after the 2 individuals attacked law enforcement, they killed 2 law enforcement officers in the CC Pizza. Like I said, went across the street, went into a Walmart store. When you're watching that video, what you find is the individuals come through the front doors. There's a service desk over to the right. As they come through the front doors, they're spouting off their just crazy murmurings, drawing attention to themselves. But what do you think people done?
Stared at them.
They just looked at them crazy, turned around and assumed their business, right? Because what's more important than returning that Christmas gift at Walmart the day after Christmas? So as they turned back to their duties, the individual, the male subject, it was male and female, husband and wife. As they walk in, they have firearms visible in their hands. And finally, he fires basically a shot into the air, which then draws everyone's attention. Now everybody's paying attention. They know what's going on. But in the other parts of the store, just as you've seen in the one clip, people hear the shot but pay it no attention. So right in the surrounding area where this incident unfolds, there's chaos. In the back part of the business, there's people are going on about their business. But one of these individuals, as he's witnessing the individual fire the shot, he is a civilian with a concealed weapons permit. He's not formally trained, he has little experience with firearm based on the information that I have. With that, he decides within himself that he's going to engage the shooter, engage the male subject. What he fails to realize is the female subject, the wife, is right behind him. So as he draws his firearm, and what's depicted in the video, he draws his firearm to attempt to engage the male subject. As he does, the wife, the female subject, engages and kills him. That's the reason we don't teach you to engage these suspects unless your life is in jeopardy. Because unless you have the tactics, you have the training to do what we are trained to do, then we don't recommend that you try to engage these suspects, because the likelihood of you surviving is very unlikely unless you have some form of training. Do I have any military vets in here? Some of you military vets, retired law enforcement officers, people that have been around firearms, they may have had the training and capable of doing that. But you as just an average citizen that may have a concealed weapons permit, but unless you're trained with that weapon, we don't recommend that you engage that suspect, okay? Has anyone ever heard gunshots inside of a building? Based on the earlier, they kind of gave you 3 different places where they fired shots, and different areas are going to be distorted differently, okay? So you don't always attribute that one gunshot to an actual gunshot, because it may sound differently. But just as the clip that you just heard, those individual and repeated shots, that's when you need to start really getting your situational awareness really high, start paying attention to what's going on around you. Because like I said, especially in the Walmart video, people, that first shot they hear, they just look around like, what was that? And they go back to doing what you're doing. How many times we heard a car backfire or something and we just play it off? We've all done it, every one of us. So denial, don't deny anything. If you do hear something, be aware of it. Just don't play it off. Begin to investigate, because it's your life, it's your family's life that's at stake. If you do hear gunshots, go straight to deliberation. Make a decision. Okay, this is how are people responding? What's going on around me? Do I see someone with a gun? Do I, what is going on around me? Just being situationally aware go a long way. This individual, she was involved in the Virginia Tech shooting. This is going to be a short clip. Her name just left me. Christina Anderson. She was in room 211 at Virginia Tech. Her tactic during that was to play dead. And once you watch this video, we'll talk a little more about it.
So this is pretty important. This day, I am sitting in exactly the same seat I always did, in the back right-hand corner on the right side of the class. What we don't know is at this time, someone is downstairs and he's chaining all 3 doors shut. There's supposed to be desks there. Well, you guys can see. We heard the first gunshots outside in the hallway, and my teacher, she opened the door. She immediately slammed it and she said, call 911. And the second that door closed, he walks in. He walks in shooting. There's absolutely no time. He goes to the other side of the classroom by the windows. He's holding 2 guns. He doesn't say anything. He just starts going down the rows of people. It's very quick. It's very loud. It's very scary. We had these very shitty desks. I get on the floor. I put my knees under the chair, my stomach on the seat, hands overhead, eyes are closed. As the shots keep going, and it's, like I said, very loud, I can tell it's getting closer and closer. And I'm telling myself, brace yourself, your turn's gonna come. Now, I didn't know what that meant. Like, I didn't think I was gonna get shot, but I knew that something really serious was going on. And I knew for whatever reason that I should just play dead. He shoots me. The first time it's in the back. And you'd be surprised, getting shot doesn't hurt that much because shock overtakes you, but it starts to like burn and really kind of seep in, and that's when it gets really uncomfortable. It's not pleasant. He leaves the first time, he goes across the hall, and while he's gone, cell phones are ringing, people are coughing, and the smell of gunpowder has like completely filled the room. Gunpowder is like this really sticky, pungent, warm smell, and it just makes you very, very thirsty. He comes back. Now, this time, the shooting is more intermittent. It's slower because he's looking to see who's alive. I remember telling myself to stop breathing because I can feel my stomach hitting that chair, and I'm saying, stop, like, he can see that you're alive. The third and final time, he killed himself in front of our classroom. When the police broke in, the first thing the guy said was, "We have a lot of blacks in here." I didn't know what that meant, but when police sweep a crime scene, they have 30 seconds. If you're red, you're critically injured. If you're yellow, you'll live. Black means you're dead. In 9 minutes, he killed 11 of my classmates and my teacher. 32 people lost their lives that day.
We'll talk more about this individual shooting here in just a little while. But the tactic that she deployed, she was shot 3 times in this incident by playing dead. In essence, she should have been dead. So what we're trying to encourage you today is this is not a good tactic. This is not something we want you to do. This is not something that we will encourage. Because playing dead, if those 3 shots had have met a different mark, she wouldn't be here to talk to us today. Again, what we call this is hiding and hoping. It's not a good strategy, and that's not something we want to encourage you guys to do.
All right, at the beginning of the presentation, we saw the ADD, avoid, deny, defend. That's what we're going to talk about now. This is the strategy, and this is in order of how it's supposed to be done. First, we are to avoid. If somebody comes in, we are to avoid the situation. Situational.
Can you take costumes or those that's on the chart you have there?
Before we play this, I'll give you a little bit of background. Has anybody seen I'm sure you've seen the news clippings back in 2010 of a gentleman that came into a school board meeting and spray painted the V in a circle and then shot at the school board members? Everybody remember that? Okay, a little bit of background about that. It was about 2 o'clock, December the 14th, 2010. 56-year-old ex-con walks into a school board meeting who is on probation for aggravated stalking. He walks in, he announces that he had a motion. He takes out a can of red spray paints a V and a circle on the wall. They believe that is from the movie Vendetta. He produces a 9mm Smith & Wesson semi-automatic pistol. He points with the gun at 2 female board members, advises them that they can leave, and then begins to go through the whole process. We'll go ahead and watch the video. What I want you to focus on is when he comes in and shows the gun to everybody. Pay attention to what the people do in the front row, and then we'll talk about it.
As part of the plan we have in the workshop we're going to have following this meeting, this will be the first step in that whole process. I have a motion. Everybody in this room. Counter in the road. Please.
I've been hoping.
Hey, sir. John's just going to talk. He's talking. John, go ahead. Ginger. Yes. Is there anybody else? Sir, I don't know who you are. Can we talk for a minute? Just order the person. Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question? Because I really don't know who you're talking about. To be very honest with you, I don't know who you're talking about. She was fired. I believe that when she said that, but what did she do? Come on in. Can you just talk to us a little bit? Where is he working, students? He's a number. No, he's saying no. Oh, we should want to come on in. Now, who's that y'all? Come on in. You got a room down there? Come on in. I'm going to wait a minute. He probably doesn't have it. Tell me what she did. Her call with police is. I know that. Tell me. Part of what? Sir, I don't know what you bring in. Stop taxes, okay? You said we don't need no taxes. No, that's plenty of money. Then as soon as you got the school system, then you turned around and said, oh, now we need to have some sales tax again. I said we need to have some sales tax from the very beginning. I campaigned on that. Oh, yes, I did. You can look on the material. I said from the beginning, we have some sales tax is the most equitable way because everybody pays it, not just property owners. But see, here's what I don't want to happen. I don't want anybody to, just listen to me for a minute. I don't want anybody to get hurt, and I've got a feeling what you want is the cops come in and kill you because you're mad, because you said you're going to die. But why? This isn't worth it. This is a problem. Please don't. Please don't. Please. I'm doing it.
All right. A little bit about that. Did anybody pay attention to the people that was in the front row? Like the ladies when he produced the handgun, what they done? They basically dug down in the floor and waited until he gave them permission to leave, pretty much. And the gentleman in the front, I mean, there's about 20 people in there and one guy with a gun. I mean, and everybody just sat there. Do you not think, like, maybe we can take him? You know what I mean? Like, that's things that you need to think about instead of freezing and automatically thinking, I got to do what this guy says. He basically, the school board, the supervisor, he tried to negotiate with him. I mean, he sat there, please don't, please don't, please don't. The guy is dedicated. He brought a gun into a building. I mean, do something. Get out. Throw something at it. Defend yourself. Avoid the situation.
He kind of argued with you, too, made the situation worse.
Well, he did. Did you hear there was a voice in the background. He said, John, the superintendent mentioned the name John. That was the school resource officer came into the room, saw the gentleman there. The superintendent basically said it's probably not even a real gun, and he didn't engage him at that point. So there was a lot of things that we could money more quarterback about the whole situation, but the main purpose of it was to see how people react and how that could have been totally different and how people could have, luckily he didn't shoot anybody. His wife said that he was an excellent marksman. So obviously he was under some stress because he shot several times point blank at some individuals and missed. So he was under some stress as well. So that's another side of the stress factor that we can look at. But situational awareness. Back to Kristen Anderson. in the Virginia Tech video. The teacher goes out into the hallway, hears gunfire, goes out into the hallway, sees a man with a gun, comes back in and says, call 911. How's that going to help you at that point? If it is that close to you, 911 is not going to save you. So everybody got down and they hunkered under their desks. They didn't barricade the door. They didn't try to avoid the situation at all, which is what we're trying to figure out. Know your exits. They could have very well blocked the door, but they didn't in the Virginia Tech shooting. So that's the first section. Don't think about hunkering down, hiding, and hoping. You have to avoid the situation. Consider secondary exits. So we've told you that there's 1, 2, 3 exits in this room. But if something happens, it's like the station's fire, there's windows too. Don't be afraid of breaking a window or drywall. I mean, most places in your office buildings has drywall walls. If that is your exit, then exit through the drywall. Make a way. You don't have to stay there.
That takes right into the deny phase of it. Obviously, when locking the door is huge. It's one of the first things you need to be doing if you can't avoid the situation. Locking the door and turn off the lights. This guy knows law enforcement's on the way. Like I said, we got probably a 2-minute average response time. Tell us there's an active shooter and see how fast we actually get there. We're on the way. This guy knows his minutes are limited. So he's trying to work through whatever he's trying. If he gets the door and it's locked, I mean, in his mind, he's like, I'll find one open, I'll find somebody to shoot. I know they're on their way to get me. So if you lock a door, that could save your life and whoever's in there with you. Being out of sight too, first glass panes around the window. Make sure that you're well out of the view from any angle. See if you can get in the corner. Even if you're not hiding behind anything, just be out of sight if you know your door's locked. And that may be what saved your life. Of course, you want to barricade the doors. There's a lot of doors that I've been behind that you just wish there was something more there. Most of them's cheap. You can probably just push through the door. Even if you didn't hardly push on it, you'd break the hinges off. But you can barricade the desk, wherever you're at, tables. If nothing else, even if he can push through the door, he's got a lot of stuff to climb through. It's a maze for him to get through while trying to get you. You could be breaking out the window on the other side of the room, leaving. It's just going to tie him up. It's a good thing to do. Outward opening doors, that's tough. Like this right here. It'd be tough to hang on that door handle, knowing there's a guy on the other side that might be shooting through trying to get you. It's just hard to hang on. Some things too, I don't know if y'all noticed in the video, you see that guy put his belt on the upper hinge that closes? That right there is one thing, it's something simple. Everybody has some kind of clothing, a hoodie, or anything you can wrap around it just to keep the top hinge from opening. That may be something to give you time to break out this room and run. So just be cognizant of anything that you can use. It doesn't have to be that specific purpose. Just work around it.
Those safety doors don't lock from the inside. They have to have a wrench to lock them, right?
Usually Allen key.
Unfortunately, fire code prevents a lot of things for us, especially with schools and so forth. There are certain fire prevention codes that have been in place for a lot of years. Good part of it is, when's the last time you heard about several people dying in a public building? Very few, right? Because of all the fire prevention. I mean, you can look in here at the ventilation system, the sprinkler system. There's the exit signs are marked. All that comes in the fire prevention code. But unfortunately for us, just like the doors itself, those bars that go across, that's part of the fire prevention code. All that stuff hurts us is what we want to tell you as law enforcement officers. But within your own home, within your churches and so forth, those can be dictated by you or those governing boards. The next part of this is the defend. Again, I want to stress that we're not teaching you to go out and if you can avoid a threat to engage it. That's not what we're here to teach you. But when it comes a point when you've attempted to avoid, you've attempted to deny, just like us. If there was a gunman right now outside of that door, and let's say there's one at each door, we know we're surrounded. At some point, we have to teach or make a decision of how we're going to defend ourselves. So if knowing there's an imminent threat coming through there, and absent us, what are some weapons that you could improvise in this room to help you fight back or defend yourself? Chair. Chair. The office. Do what? You took that one from me. Nobody
Just
got that one
happens to
earlier.
be, it just happens to be here this time, but we always do.
Fire extinguishers, broom handles. There's a lot of different things that are in our offices and our facilities that we can utilize as weapons if we just slow down, use our rational brain, and think of those things, okay? One thing, and this is actually part of the law enforcement training that we go through, you can see these are two officers, and this is a suspect. You can't tell real great from this projector, but he does have a firearm. One of the simple tactics as they're doing is to go on each side of the doorways. As the shooter comes in, usually they're going to come in weapon drawn and out front of them. Simple tactic that you can do is to grab the muzzle of that weapon if it's a semi-automatic weapon. Even if they fire one round, it will jam the weapon and make it malfunction to the point that you may be able to fight against the suspect absent that weapon. Usually it'll make it stovepipe or double feed, something of that nature, and not allow the weapon to recycle itself and load another active round. There's simple tactics like this, again, that we're giving you a baseline. These are things that you can learn upon, that you can build upon on yourself in your private time. Because not only are we passing this information along to help you as an employee of the town, but also in your personal life. This is information that you can build upon with your family, your friends, your brothers, sisters, your siblings, and your children if you have. No one wants to think of, I've got a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. At what point do you start preparing them for this type of situation? It's not something as individuals we want to do. But if I have the knowledge and my child goes to school when an active shooter event happens and I've not gave him the tools to help himself, I'm responsible. I would feel responsible, and I believe you would too. But when you're pinned down, you have to fight. You have to defend yourself, and like I said, those improvised weapons can be used. This individual is a hero in my book. It's Lieutenant Brian Murphy. This is a quote that came to him this is his process, thought process while he is actively engaged with an active shooter. Lieutenant Murphy was on duty this specific day. He had actually came in to relieve a sergeant that wanted to attend his son's graduation ceremony. So he's working on a Sunday, thought it was going to be an easy shift. He comes to shift, he gets a call over the radio with inaccurate information of just a disturbance call at the Sheik temple. He responds to that call. As he's responding, he gets information that a gun may be involved. As he arrives as the first officer on scene, he sees 2 bodies laying in the parking lot. Lieutenant Murphy immediately exits his patrol car, makes his way to those 2 victims, and finds that they are deceased. While he's checking those 2 individuals, he sees movement out of the corner of his eye and his peripheral vision. At that time, he realizes as he looks up that is the suspect. The suspect and the officer make eye contact at the same time, simultaneously raise their pistols. They both fire 1 shot apiece. Lieutenant Murphy's shot misses. Unfortunately, the suspect shot is dead on, hits him square in the chin. That bullet travels through his chin, into his neck, down into his voice box. You see the scar that he has on his neck is because of that bullet, which is still lodged within his body. So at this point, he can't talk. It has ruptured his voice box, and still to this day, he cannot speak clearly. As he took that shot, Lieutenant Murphy went down. He then gets himself back into the fight. He says, this is not where this is going to happen. So he comes back up, tries to engage the suspect, only to learn that the suspect who's flanked him is not where he thought he was going to be. He comes back up behind him, begins to fire rounds. The next rounds go into his arms and legs, and that next immediate round takes and severs the top of his thumb on his left gun hand. So now his gun hand is left useless. As Lieutenant Murphy goes down, he's trying to hide from the shots that are coming at him, still taking several rounds. He crawls up underneath his patrol car, and this is where he came up with this saying. It says, "I'm not going out in the parking lot. I'm not going out like this. I'm not going to let my wife down. I'm not going to let my daughter down, and I'm not going to let my stepkids down." At that point, he made a decision, knowing that the active shooter was still ongoing, that he was going to crawl out from underneath that patrol car, get back to his patrol car, retrieve his shotgun, and re-engage the suspect. As he positions himself from out underneath the patrol car, he again engages the suspect. At this time, he's been shot 15 times, different locations in the body. He has actively took 15 rounds, but has the mindset that he will not quit. He will not give up. At that point, he delivers a fatal blow to the suspect, shoots him in the abdomen. At that point, the suspect then takes his own life. So Lieutenant Murphy, and his heroism that day, he stopped that shooting before mass murder was committed. Without the actions of Lieutenant Murphy, God only knows what could have happened that day. And without his willpower to succeed in that situation, none of us could only imagine what may have come of that incident. The next situation I'll talk to you about is Virginia Tech. I think that all hits home. It's right here in our back door. May have had family members, may have had different individuals that we know that may have been involved in that or around that incident. This occurred in Norris Hall on the Virginia Tech campus. This occurred April 16, 2007, and 32 people were killed in this incident, and 17 were wounded. What makes this situation kind of unique from the law enforcement field in this situation itself, the suspect entered Norris Hall. He chained the outer doors. These doors were chained shut. On the doors, there was notes left that if the door was breached, that there was explosives inside, which rendered, obviously law enforcement officers responding not to breach or enter those doors. This also changed and hit home to our department. At this point, we had not had breaching materials in each car. After this shooting and analyzing it, we then implemented and put entry tools into each vehicle in our police department. So every officer responded to each incident has his own breaching tools. But out of this situation, you're going to see the difference between the tactics of denying, from hiding and hoping, and then to the final where actual actions were taken to avoid the attacker and the outcome of it. Again, there were 32 people killed, and the murder spree lasted approximately 12 minutes. Police arrived to Norris Hall within 2 minutes, and entry was made within 5 minutes. So there was about 3 minutes it took them to get and breach because they couldn't get through those doors. They didn't have the tools and equipment, number one, to cut the chains, and number two, with the explosives, they didn't have the knowledge or the capability to deal with that in an emergency circumstance. So they ended up going in through windows in various ways. By this time, the suspect has went to the second floor of Norris Hall, and this is where he begins to engage victims. As he enters Norris Hall, he first enters room 206. This is where the shooting started. And he walked in and just started killing people. He left, and then he later returned to the same room. Next, he went to and And there's different storylines. Some say he went to 211, which was across the hall, and others say he went to 207. But nevertheless, in room 207, the shooter walked in, shot several students and the teacher. He then walked down the aisle shooting students. That's where you heard Miss Anderson's version of the events earlier. The shooter left and then later returned. In 207, the students, as he returned the second time, they used their bodies to barricade the door. The shooter was only able to get the door open 1 inch, and he also fired several shots in the doorknob area, but no one was hurt or shot during those shots. 211, the teacher heard shots and told the students to call 911. The students attempted to block the door with desks. The shooter pushed his way in, shot the professor, walked down each aisle, killing students. And in room 204, there's a professor was rescued that he was a Holocaust survivor. He held the door shut with his own body. He yelled at the students to jump out of the windows. This chart shows you the mortality rate based on the actions. Again, in 206, this is where the shooting started. There was no resistance. And you can see that 90% of the individuals in this room were shot, and there was a 70% casualty rate. 211, which is what we believe is one of the second rooms that we entered. Again, this is where the teacher heard the shots, told him to call 911, but there was really no action taken to prevent. And you can see that 100% of the individuals in this room were shot, including Ms. Nelson, which talked to you earlier. And you can see that there was a 60% mortality rate, or casualty rate in there. Room 207, again, they attempted to use desks, which were ineffective. They entered, and you can see that their attempt on the second entry did lower the casualty rate, 80% shot, and only 30% died in that event. But in room 205, this is where students, 204, this is where, again, Professor Rescue held the door. He died that day, but his students, a couple of his students were shot. However, they survived. He was the only fatality. And in room 205, the students heard the shots and used their feet to keep the door closed. The shooter pushed and on and fired through the door, but never gained entry. And you can see there was no one shot or no one injured. So that's where we developed these tactics. Another reason we developed those tactics, if you deny entry, if you deny that individual access to you, then it limits the amount of casualties, the amount of damage that that individual can inflict.
Okay, so by that graph, we see that playing dead is not the solution, right? Because the people that barricaded the door and the room that the teacher said barricaded the door, you know, there was less casualties, and then on the last one, there was no casualties. So what you have to understand and remember is you are not helpless. The shooter at Virginia Tech, they said that the way he practiced the shooting was he laid paper plates down and walked along and shot the paper plates on the ground. So what's that give you an idea of? People laying on the ground and him shooting them. So they basically gave him what he practiced by laying down. Okay? So you are not helpless. What you do matters in the situation. You got to remember, if you hear something going on, avoid. If you can't avoid, deny. If you can't deny, defend. We're going to go through it real quick. Okay, the attack starts. You know something's happening. So you look for your primary exits. Okay? You find your primary exits. So you automatically are avoiding the situation. Say you can't find or you can't get to one of your exits. So you deny. So So you're gonna barricade a door. You're gonna find some way to stop them from making entry. Deny them access to your location. And then find another exit. Windows, another exit, another exit. You find one of those, boom, then you avoid. Okay? There is no other exits. So your last option is to defend yourself. You have the right to defend yourself. If somebody is trying to kill you, you have the right to defend yourself. That's just a quick overlook of what it looks like. Just try and remember. Avoid, deny, defend.
All right, that's the end of the video we seen from earlier. One thing I want you to notice is how many police uniforms do you see?
None.
All right, how many police do you think's in that room right now that we can and can't see? A lot. We don't see any uniforms. You see a guy with a vest on that says police. Probably an investigator or something that has it in the back of his car, and he just threw it on because he heard this was going on. So this is something mentally be prepared to see. You know, it's tough on us also. We also don't know, you know, who's the police when we roll in these situations. Right off the interstate, you know, we see all kinds of brothers in blue all the time. Say, hey, I'm a police officer from here and there. And most of us, I mean, I know most of us do, we carry some active shooter stuff with us. Like, you know, having an AR and a vest with us, you never know when it's going to happen. We might be the person they need. But just keep that in mind. You may not see regular police uniforms. We know it, and it's really tough for us. And that's what kind of brings me to say, if we come, say it happened here, we're rolling down the hallway, and we're coming in, and, you know, all of a sudden you three guys run out of the classroom and start running toward me. I'm like, get on the ground, and you don't listen. You know, I'm already in a high-stress situation. You may be the three bad guys I think I'm looking for. Just please listen. I know us guys and the girls too, kind of hate for people to tell you what to do, especially during a high-stress situation. What you think is best may not be what's best. You know, I would hate to shoot somebody at all though in that situation. Try to help us out a little bit. Because we're trying to fool with you, try to see your hands. We're spending all that time on you. We can't make it to that guy that's actually killing people. So just listen to what we're saying so we can get past you. You can run past me. Just make sure I see your hands and everything. Like I said, priority work. When we come in, there may be people shot, and they're grabbing onto our ankles, so please help us. You know, I've been shot. That's a bad situation. Of course I want to help you, that's my job. That's my call in life, is to help people. But I can't right now. I got to focus on this guy, wherever he is, or girl, whatever it is. But I got to find him, stop the threat, then we can revert back to trying to save lives. Because that's number one, he's taking lives before I can even get to him. Then we're going to try to evacuate the area. All right, like I said, when the police arrive, please listen to what we're saying. Every time I see somebody, whether it's on duty or off duty, I'm looking at hands, looking at bulges in their shirts if they got guns. Sometimes I wish I could turn it off, you know, because you just get tired of scanning people. So I wish I could just walk normal through a store. But just please, hands. If I see your hands, in my mind, you're really not a threat. I'm like, come on by me or do whatever I'm telling you to do so I can get to where the situation's at. If you show me your hands, I'm probably going to tell you to go. I don't stop, you know, unless you have really good information for me, then just roll on. You'll find an exit. If I just come from that way, chances are the guy's not there. So. All right, one thing, don't expect the rest of you guys to be on the scene just just as fast as we are coming in. They are not going to even get close until they know it's secure. And if I come in and there's one guy, I find him, we're going to lock the situation down. I'm going to group up some officers, and we're going to search the whole building. You never know when there's going to be another one. They might have somebody with them who never even knew. But just know that medical is going to happen, but they're not going to come anywhere near a hot situation like that. Does anyone, now that we're talking about that, has anybody ever used a tourniquet? Okay. Cheap. You get them for under $15 for sure online. These are tourniquet situations. Some of your jobs, I'm not sure what everybody's title is here. You never know when you're going to sever some kind of artery or anything, high flow of blood. Tourniquet quick can save your life. You buy the tourniquet, YouTube how to use it. I mean, just something simple. Just $15 can save your life. We carry them on duty and off duty too, because bullet wounds, that would be a tourniquet situation. And that would be something to help us out. If you're on the scene and you just so happen to have it in your pocket, you wrap it around your arm, like, good, see you in a minute. Be something simple. As far as the end here, you will, if you're in that situation, you're going to have some mental trauma. Okay? Don't want to scare you with that, but it's going to be some weird things you go through. You're going to play what is. Man, I should have done this. I could have saved Billy if I'd been in that room and told him that this guy was out here. But you're going to go through so many things. It's going to be your fault in your mind. You're going to roll through it. So expect these things to happen. It's totally normal. I've been through it. You question yourself and you think about everything. You're just hating you didn't do this and do that. And I think, counselor is a good thing. I went to a couple sessions because of the shooting. It was mandatory for me, but it's good to get it off your chest. They ask some key questions that they're trained to ask, and they kind of, if you bottle up inside of it, it's going to make you a miserable person. So it's good to talk to somebody, and they can explain to you. That's what they do. They talk to people who've been through things. So don't be surprised if you're having some what they call survivor's guilt, and you feel bad for living when he did it. And you go through all kinds of different mental things that just blow your mind. But that stuff shouldn't scare you. Live out the situation. Train for it. Train your mind what you're going to do. And the mental thing, it'll fade away at the end, so don't let it affect you. Just expect it. Totally normal. Totally normal. Anything on that? All right. At the beginning, we asked if you had any questions. Save until the time. This is the time. So if anybody's got questions about anything we went over or anything in general, we'll go ahead and answer them.
I have to ask it when I'm thinking about it. I don't have any now. You all explained it really well. I can remember.
So any questions about it? Does it make sense? This is just, unfortunately, we have to teach these things. I remember when I was younger, you don't even hear these things in active shooter at all. But it's becoming a real thing, actually very common. So, help us out if there's any feedback with the class. We teach this a lot now. So if there's some feedback, we would like to incorporate it, fix ourselves up a little bit.
You've done a great job.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate you.
Yep.
Thank you.
You guys, like I said, use this as a platform, build on it. This is something that we're pretty passionate about. We've dedicated a lot of time to this program. We've dedicated a lot of time to the training that goes along with it because we are passionate about it. Because if we can save your life without having to fire a round, without having to, risk other officers or other individuals, we've already won. If we've saved one person out of this training, to me, that's worth it. So take this out that we also, we done last year prior to this training, we offered a class through the Recreation Center in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. We done a training session on the civilian response to active shooter. That's open to the public. We are going to schedule several of those in the future. We've had a large outcry for that in our community, asking for that type of situation or that type of training, because you may very well encounter those situations. So keep in contact, check the Rec Center's website. They will list those training dates at a later time, but we anticipate at least one and maybe even a couple of different levels of that. One being a classroom based, and two, once you've completed that, a scenario based training that will get more in depth and maybe put the rubber to the road, so to speak. So just keep a check on that. That's something you want. That's definitely something we're going to offer. So if there's no other questions, anybody got anything to add? Questions?
How do we bring this into the schools?
We've got some resistance on that because with any governing body, as you well know, there's several different things involved with that. I would love to roll it over to the schools, but they have a little different concept on how we've approached this. So I really don't know. Like I said, we've B.J. Lawson with the sheriff's office, he kind of handles that for the Wytheville County schools, and he gave us some valuable information prior to this class that we kind of founded everything on. So they have their own people that do that, and we've not really sold them on what we're doing yet. So.
But you can pass this along to your children in situations where, say, they're at basketball games or football games, things that isn't necessarily dictated by the school system as far as what happens. So this is information that you guys can pass on to your loved ones on how to handle a situation and what to expect. So I think they linked the PowerPoint, actually the PowerPoint, on to some of your guys' information, so you guys can print the PowerPoint off and show your kids and your family members if necessary.
And where can you find the PowerPoint?
It is online under the employee section of the forums page. It is now part of the training videos, the mandatory videos that we do, bloodborne pathogen and all that sort of thing. It is linked in there with those. The individual videos that we've showed you today, Alert has made them available on the YouTube. As simple as a YouTube search, you can pull up the Avoid, Deny, Defend. That first video clip we showed, and of course all the information is out there. If you type in the Alert, A-L-E-R-R-T, it's Alert with 2 R's. If you type that in, it'll bring up a lot of information as well. So they pretty well made all this public because they want the information out there. Preferably through us as instructors, but secondly, if is anybody with a handheld device, they can look it up a lot easier than they can attend a class.
Good.
Yes, sir.
Just a real quick question. I kind of was talking to you about it like a little bit out there, but like, what are the ramifications? I know it's different for like different areas, different states, things like that, different government buildings. But like, what are the ramifications if someone's carrying concealed with a concealed carry license? Like, what are the ramifications? Like, if the individual wasn't aware, or like, or if they did know and went into a place with a concealed carry handgun, that they technically weren't supposed to have it?
Well, by you obtaining that concealed weapons permit, you're saying that you meet the standard, that you know the laws, that you know the standards of that carry. So it does hold you to a higher standard. As far as individual businesses and so forth, if you see the stickers such as movie theaters and so forth, if you see that sticker on the front of that business that says no weapons allowed, I, as a law enforcement officer, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but let's say that you're well within your concealed weapons within those guidelines. However, that business limits the carry within their business. If you carry it inside that business, I cannot criminally charge you for that. However, the business may ask you or make you leave, and you're have to go to those civil ramifications of it. But as far as a criminal charge, unless it's some forbidden facility like a school, and so forth, then you can be criminally charged. But as long as it's just that sticker, churches, the information that I got from our old Commonwealth attorney, Lee Harold, I'm trying to say Lee May, but Lee Harold, basically he discerned the code, looked up case law, and says that as long as you carry without ill will or evil purpose, you're well within your parameters carry within the church. We have to prove your intent. If you go in and murder people, obviously you're restricted by that code and you're in violation of that code. But if you're doing it because of what we're seeing day to day, and you can tell us that when we arrive, why have you got a gun? Well, there was just several people murdered the other day attending church. That's why I'm just here to protect myself. And then we kind of understand, and you fall in the gray area of the code, and probably won't be charged. But I, again, am not an attorney and can't give you legal advice. But like I said, as long as you're within, not in a school, don't take it in federal buildings. If you go in the Social Security office and you're carrying a weapon, then you're open to federal code. That's outside state code. That's a federal code. And you open yourself up to that, civil or that criminal liability. But as long as you're not doing it with ill will or evil purpose, I think you'd be all right.
But you can't have a gun on your person or in your vehicle as long as you're an employee of the town.
But restricted by our policy, correct? We as law enforcement officers are the only ones, obviously, that's not subject to that code. That question arose, I'll bring it to your attention too. That policy was brought to our attention, and there's some current concern about that policy. That is where your council members, they have open ears. They've been a wonderful council, been very open about being approached. What I would encourage you to do is we have a committee meeting just for those reasons. Whoever your committee member is, take your concerns to them and have them approach council with your concerns and the possible outcome or changes related with that.
Well, in some areas, we have just, you may be based on the second shift, the water plant or the wastewater plant by yourself.
And
a whole lot of recourse.
Yeah, I understand. What we're encouraging, and especially we had some concern with the water department earlier about especially the things that they encounter as they're cutting off water, people, hostile attitudes and stuff like that. This is a town of Wytheville training. Everybody in this room, everybody within these facilities within the town, we're all here for a common purpose. And what is that purpose? To make the town of Wytheville function properly and efficiently, right? If you guys have a concern, especially when you're encountering these type of situations, don't be afraid to call us at the police department. That's what we're here for. That's what we are trained to do. The worst thing that you could tell us is, well, I thought something was going on, but I just didn't want to bother you guys. We would rather be bothered and prevent it than we would to have to respond and clean up the situation. And that's where we're all in one boat. We've all got to work together. Each department, we all have to scratch each other's back and come together as one. So don't be afraid to call us, and inevitably if we need something, we're going to call you guys. So, like I said, that's the best outcome. Do you have anything to throw you in the spotlight while you're here? But
I think that would be the responsibility to bring it to the personnel committees that, and then it can go to council and that's what we discussed and addressed.
And we heard earlier that sometimes people are kind of cower down at those meetings and don't feel like they're in a position to voice. But that's what these committees, it's what it was developed for, to take away that unknowing or that not being able to speak to one another. That's why it's here. So even if they don't want to speak, type something up, have your concerns together, and just approach council with a written letter. And like my chief always said, if you come to me with a problem, come to me with some solutions too. And be able to, don't put all the weight on them, but offer some solutions as well. And I think that would be a great outcome.
I've been on the committee, it's pretty effective.
Yeah, so I think it was one of the greatest things that's happened is being able to talk back. Yeah. but they've got a lot of weight on their shoulders. There's a lot of times they're restricted as to what they can and can't. There's a reason that policy's there. There's something that's transpired, some, liability or some issue that's arose that the reason that that's been implemented. So we got to be open-minded when we hear no as well sometimes. So. Anybody got anything else? Any other questions? If not, we are going to prod y'all out the door and we'll make room for the next group. But we do appreciate you guys. If you have any feedback, please contact us. You know where we work, and be glad to do anything we can for you. Thank y'all.